In front of a stunned live audience, Donald Trump strutted onto Jimmy Fallon's stage, thinking he was about to humiliate the late-night host like he had done to so many others, only to watch his smug smirk shatter the moment Fallon calmly dropped the bomb that would destroy him. Ripped Trump's carefully built empire of lies wide open, exposing the sickening family secrets he had buried for years, and turning the arrogant president into a trembling, speechless mess right in front of a roaring audience. It was a typical Friday night taping of The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon, one of America's biggest late-night programs, where celebrities usually came to joke around, promote their latest projects, and keep things light and fun. The live audience of about 400 people filled the seats, buzzing with excitement, phones ready, hoping for laughs and viral moments. But tonight felt different from the very beginning. Donald Trump strode onto the stage like he owned the place. He dropped into the big couch with a heavy thud and immediately started firing off his usual jokes. "Jimmy, you still doing this show? I thought they'd replaced you with somebody funny by now," he said, grinning wide. The audience laughed loud and hard. Trump leaned back, soaking it in. Jimmy Fallon greeted him with that warm, friendly smile he was famous for. "Great to have you here, Mr. President," he said, voice smooth and easy. But if you looked closely, his eyes were sharper than usual. Then Trump decided it was time to push a little harder. He turned toward Fallon, still smiling, but his tone shifted. "You know, Jimmy, you've been in a slump for years now. Real men don't watch you anymore. They watch real entertainment. Me." The words landed like a slap. The audience went dead silent for a full second. Then a few nervous laughs broke out, the kind that sounded forced. People shifted in their seats, glancing at each other. Trump didn't seem to notice. He leaned back deep into the couch, arms spread wide, looking completely satisfied with himself. Fallon didn't fire back right away. He just sat there, looking at Trump with a tiny, almost invisible smile. No anger, no shock, no quick comeback. Trump wasn't done yet. He leaned forward on the couch, still riding the high from his last jab, and decided to pile on even harder. "Let me tell you something, Jimmy," he said, voice loud and full of that familiar swagger. "You've been slipping for a long time. Your ratings are in the toilet. Nobody takes you seriously anymore. You're just another late-night guy cracking weak jokes while real people are watching me on the news." He repeated the same insult in different ways, twisting the knife, laughing at his own lines like they were gold. The audience gave a few scattered chuckles, but they sounded thinner now, more uncomfortable than before. Fallon sat there listening, not cutting him off, not getting mad. He just waited, letting Trump keep talking himself up. Then, in the middle of Trump's next boast, Fallon leaned in a little and asked one simple question, calm as could be, like he was chatting about the weather. "You always say you're the best at reading people, right? So tell me, how do you think you're doing tonight?" The question hit like a quiet punch. Trump threw his head back and let out a big booming laugh, trying to brush it off. "Oh, I'm doing fantastic, Jimmy. Tremendous. Best interview you've ever had." But for half a second, maybe less, his eyes flickered. That confident grin froze just a tiny bit. It was quick, but the cameras caught it. The audience noticed too. A low murmur rippled through the crowd. People shifted in their seats, sensing that something small had just cracked in Trump's armor. Trump tried to recover fast. He laughed even louder, slapping his knee like it was the funniest thing he'd heard all night. But the hesitation had already happened, and it hung in the air. Fallon didn't smile back this time. He just watched, steady and patient, like he knew exactly what that half-second pause really meant. Then Trump exploded. He pushed himself halfway up from the couch, pointing his finger straight at Fallon's face. "You're nothing without me on this couch," he barked, voice rising. "Nobody tunes in for you, Jimmy. They come for me. I make this show worth watching. Without Donald Trump, you're just another boring host with bad jokes and no ratings." The audience erupted in a mix of gasps and nervous chatter. Some people clapped awkwardly. Others whispered to each other, clearly shocked at how fast things had turned personal. The energy in the room flipped in an instant, part excitement, part unease. Phones started lighting up as a few folks in the back rows began recording. Fallon didn't stand up. He didn't raise his voice. He stayed right where he was, looking up at Trump with that same calm expression. Then he gave one slow, small nod, almost like he was saying, "Okay, now we're really getting started." It was such a simple move, but it carried weight. No anger, no panic, just quiet confidence that made the whole studio feel even tighter. Fallon stayed perfectly still for a moment. Then, without saying a word, he reached under his desk and pulled out a thick, sealed envelope. The studio lights caught the crisp white paper as he held it up. The audience leaned forward in their seats. You could hear the rustle of clothes and a few nervous coughs. Trump glanced at the envelope and smirked again, thinking it was probably some dumb prop for a joke. Fallon didn't rush. He broke the seal slowly and started laying documents out on the table between them. First came old photographs, then a birth certificate, and finally hospital records. His voice stayed calm and steady, like he was reading the weather report. "This isn't a joke, Mr. President. This is about Ivanka. And you." The words dropped like a stone in still water. Trump's smirk froze. Fallon slid the papers closer so the cameras could see them clearly. He pointed to dates and locations, private trips the two of them had taken alone, text messages that had been recovered, personal photos that had never been made public. The timeline was tight and ugly. It painted a picture of a relationship that went way past father and daughter. The studio went dead quiet except for the low hum of the cameras. Trump's face drained of all color. His usual tan looked gray under the bright lights. He forced a laugh, but it came out shaky. "Fake news," he barked, waving his hand like he could brush the whole thing away. "This is ridiculous, totally made up. You're desperate, Jimmy. Desperate." But Fallon didn't stop. He kept his tone even and laid out more details. Specific hotels, flight records, messages that mentioned things no father should say to his daughter. Each new piece made the story harder to dismiss. Trump shifted in his seat, his hands gripping the edge of the couch. Sweat started to bead on his forehead. The audience was completely still now, eyes wide, some people covering their mouths. Then came the twist that broke the room wide open. Fallon picked up a small remote and clicked play on a short video clip. It was verified, time-stamped, and crystal clear. Ivanka at 18, sitting close to Trump in a private setting. Their conversation intimate and way too personal for any camera to have caught by accident. Her voice was soft, his was low. The words left no room for innocent explanations. The audience gasped loud and sharp. A few people actually stood up for a second before dropping back into their seats. Whispers exploded across the studio. "Oh my God," someone muttered from the front row. Phones were out again, recording frantically. Trump shot forward in his chair, face twisted in fury. "Turn that off," he yelled, voice cracking with rage. "Stop the video right now. This is illegal. You can't show that." He pointed aggressively at the screen, his hand shaking. "Jimmy, I swear to God, turn it off." Fallon let the clip play for a few more seconds before pausing it. He looked straight at Trump, no anger in his eyes, just cold facts. Fallon didn't give Trump any time to recover. He calmly slid the first set of papers aside and pulled out a second, thicker folder from the envelope. The studio lights made the documents look even more official. He laid them out one by one on the table, his movements slow and deliberate. The audience held its breath, sensing that whatever was coming next was going to be even bigger. "This next part is about Barron," Fallon said, his voice still steady and matter-of-fact. "The medical records don't add up. The DNA timeline shows clear inconsistencies. Hospital logs from 2006 have conflicting dates for Melania's pregnancy. And there are large, unexplained payments marked as special arrangements that were wired through private accounts right around the time Barron was born. He pointed to each piece as he spoke. A lab report with red highlighted mismatches. Hospital admission forms that didn't match the public story. Bank records showing huge sums paid to a third party with no clear explanation. Every document was dated, stamped, and cross-referenced. The picture it painted was devastating. Barron was not Melania's biological child. Trump's eyes went wide. His mouth opened, but no words came out at first. Then he exploded out of his seat, face bright red. He jabbed his finger straight at Fallon and roared, "You're finished! I will destroy you! You hear me? I will bury you and this whole damn show!" His voice boomed through the studio, echoing off the walls. The audience erupted into chaos. Some people shouted in shock, others booed, a few clapped nervously. The noise rolled through the crowd like a wave, half outrage, half disbelief. Phones were held high, capturing every second. The energy in the room had turned electric and ugly all at once. Fallon didn't move. He stayed seated, looking up at Trump with the same calm expression he'd had all night. His voice cut through the noise, clear and unshaken. "Sit down, Mr. President. We're not done." Trump stood there, breathing hard, chest heaving, still pointing. For a moment it looked like he might lunge forward, but Fallon's steady gaze and quiet command seemed to freeze him in place. Slowly, unwillingly, Trump sank back onto the couch, his face twisted in fury. Fallon wasn't finished. He pulled out one final document, an internal email from Trump's own lawyer dated 2006. He held it up so the cameras could zoom in. This email says it plain. "We need to find an alternative carrier for the pregnancy. Discretion is critical." It was sent 2 weeks before the official announcement. The words hung in the air like smoke. Trump stared at the email, his shoulders slumping. Sweat poured down his face now, soaking his collar. His usual fire was flickering. He tried to speak, but his voice came out hoarse and weak. His hands trembled as he gripped the arm of the couch. The confident man who had strutted onto the stage was gone. In his place sat someone visibly shaken, struggling to hold himself together. The audience had gone from loud chaos to stunned silence again. Fallon let the silence stretch for just a second before he reached back into the envelope and pulled out a thick stack of papers. 12 pages, neatly stapled, covered in signatures and legal stamps. He spread them across the table like a fan, making sure every camera could see the bold headings and the familiar signatures at the bottom. One was clearly Donald Trump's. The other belonged to Melania. "This is a private contract drafted in 2006, Fallon said, his voice calm and flat, like he was reading from a grocery list. "It promises Melania lifelong protection, multiple properties worth tens of millions, and a massive financial settlement. In exchange, she agreed to complete silence about 2 things: the real origin of Barron and the true nature of your relationship with Ivanka." He pointed to the key clauses one by one. Section 4. The party of the second part shall maintain absolute discretion regarding family medical matters. Section 7. Any public comment on private relationships will result in immediate termination of all benefits. Fallon looked up at Trump. "This wasn't love or loyalty, Mr. President. This was a business deal to keep the family image alive." Trump's eyes narrowed. His breathing had grown heavier. The sweat on his forehead was now dripping onto his collar. He stared at the contract like it was a snake ready to bite him. The audience sat frozen, barely breathing, as the weight of the financial arrangement sank in. This wasn't gossip anymore. It was cold, signed proof. Suddenly, Trump leaned forward fast, shoving his face inches from Fallon's. His voice dropped to a low, menacing growl that still carried through the studio microphones. "People disappear for less than this, Jimmy. You have no idea who you're playing with." The threat landed hard. The entire audience went dead silent. Not a cough, not a whisper. People gripped their armrests. A few leaned back in their seats as if the words had physically pushed them. The air felt thick and dangerous. Everyone understood exactly what Trump had just implied. Fallon didn't flinch. He didn't even lean away. Instead, he looked Trump straight in the eyes and spoke in the same steady tone. "You know, that sounds familiar. In 2016, you said almost the exact same thing on camera. I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody, and I wouldn't lose any voters." Trump's mouth twitched. Before he could respond, Fallon hit play on another clip. A short, crystal-clear audio recording filled the studio. Trump's own voice from years earlier, threatening a different opponent with almost identical words. "You better be careful what you say, or you might not be around to say it much longer." The audio played out clean and undeniable. When it finished, Fallon simply said, "You've used that line before, Mr. President. We have the receipts." For the first time all night, Trump went completely silent. No comeback, no shout, no laugh. His mouth opened slightly, but nothing came out. His shoulders sagged. The fire in his eyes dimmed as the reality hit him. Every threat he had just made had been thrown right back in his face with his own recorded words. The audience stayed quiet, but the shift in the room was massive. What had started as bold trash talk had turned into a man cornered by his own past. Trump sat there, breathing hard, staring at the contract and the audio evidence like they were closing in on him. Fallon didn't waste another second. He picked up the remote and clicked it once. The big screen behind them lit up with a massive timeline that stretched across the entire stage. Every piece of evidence appeared at the same time: photographs, birth certificates, hospital records, the Ivanka video still frame, the Barron DNA report, the 12-page contract, bank transfers, and the lawyer's emails. They were all connected with red lines and dates, forming one clear, brutal story. The audience gasped as the full picture hit them at once. Trump stared at the screen, his eyes darting from one document to another. His mouth opened and closed, like he was searching for words that wouldn't come. Then, in one last desperate push, he slammed his hand on the couch and shouted, "This is all lies! Fake news! I demand to speak to my lawyers right now! Get them on the phone!" Fallon looked at him without blinking. His voice stayed calm and even. "Your lawyers already saw these documents 3 weeks ago, Mr. President." He clicked the remote again. A new email popped up huge on the screen, an internal message from Trump's own legal team. The subject line read, "High risk, do not attend Fallon interview." The body was short and direct. "The materials are verified. Strongly advise against appearing. Potential for catastrophic damage." Trump froze. The color drained completely from his face until it looked ghostly white under the studio lights. His shoulders slumped forward. The fight drained out of him in an instant. He sank deep into the couch like a man who had just been punched in the gut. No more shouting, no more pointing, no more comebacks. He just sat there, mouth slightly open, eyes glassy, completely silent. That was the breaking point. The audience, which had been holding its breath for so long, suddenly reacted. At first, it was just a few people clapping in the back rows. Then more joined in. The applause grew louder, faster, turning into a wave that rolled through the entire studio. Within seconds, it shifted into loud cheers and shouts of support for Fallon. "Jimmy! Jimmy!" some people chanted. Others stood up, clapping hard, clearly stunned, but energized by what they had just witnessed. Trump didn't move. He looked smaller somehow, shrunk into the big couch, sweat soaking through his shirt. His usual larger-than-life presence had collapsed right in front of millions. The man who had walked in owning the room was now staring blankly at the floor, unable to speak or fight back. Fallon turned slowly toward the main camera. His expression was serious, his voice clear and steady as he looked straight into the lens. Tonight wasn't about entertainment. It wasn't about ratings or jokes. It was about truth. The American people deserve to know what's been hidden from them. He paused for a moment, letting the words sink in. Behind him, Trump remained completely still, no longer even trying to interrupt. The cheers from the audience grew even louder, filling the studio with raw energy. As the segment wound down, the lights began to dim slowly. The big screen faded to black. In the quieting noise, Trump leaned slightly toward Fallon and whispered hoarsely, almost to himself, "This isn't over." But everyone watching, the audience in the studio, the millions at home, knew the truth. It was over. The trap had sprung completely. The confident, untouchable Trump, who had strutted onto the stage, had been dismantled piece by piece in front of the world. What started as a playful interview had ended as one of the most shocking nights in late-night television history. The screen went dark, the applause thundered on,